The views and opinions expressed in the following program are those of the hosts and guests, and not necessarily those of the staff or management of Worldwide Digital Broadcasting Corporation.
Hey, welcome today to Doing It with Styles. I got a very special guest that I've known for, my God, almost a year. I met this young lady about a year ago over on Rainbow next to the Home Depot. And interesting place. I was driving by and I saw the sign on the window and I thought, I got to stop in there. It was the Bernie Sanders headquarters here in Las Vegas, and I met Jordan Barbeau, who was working there at the time, and she has been working on Senator Sanders' campaign, or had been working on Senator campaign, and got a chance. She had promised me that the next time she got back to Las Vegas, she would come on the show, and so here she is. Ta-da! So, Jordan Barbeau, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And one of the things that I appreciate about you is that you are a person of your word. You said that you would do this, and it took a while, but here you are.
It is the
And
first time I've
realized you
managed
were
to get
busy.
back. Yeah. Unfortunately, been almost a year. Yeah.
Can you tell everyone out there who you are, what you're doing, and what you've done?
Sure. Well, let's see where to begin. I'm mostly a California girl, but a lifelong nomad. Worked on campaigns on the East Coast, and then came back to the West Coast for law school. And then was working with a few nonprofits and heard that the senator had announced his bid for president, and thought if there was anything that was worth getting back on the campaign trail, it would be Bernie. And started in Nevada, and it was a whirlwind almost year on the campaign, up through the primary in California. And since then was working with, probably a lot of Sanders supporters would be familiar with National Nurses United, which was a big asset and a huge endorsement, and so I was lucky enough to go work with them on several organizing campaigns down in Southern California. So I'm back in California now, but was able to come down here to Vegas as we close in on the 1-year anniversary of the lovely caucus.
Yes. Yeah, it was an exciting time, and I know that every time I went by the headquarters over there, there was a lot of activity,
Yes.
and it was nice to see. We were hopeful. Things didn't quite turn out the way that we had hoped, but my question is, okay, so now what do we do? Where do we go from here?
And I think that that's what a lot of people are asking themselves, both folks that were already, Sanders followers, Sanders supporters, and folks that weren't engaged earlier in the primary process, maybe didn't get engaged until the general election or after. I think we've seen a real uptick in really active engagement from folks that usually don't participate in politics.
Right.
I was lucky enough to go to DC for the Women's March the day after the inauguration, which, for anybody who didn't see the fake news photos,
Yes.
had massive, unbelievable turnout.
This is not fake news, by the way. I guarantee it.
We are not sponsored by CNN.
Yes.
And it was a really pivotal moment for a lot of people, and there were a lot of conversations that I was hearing from people at the march saying, okay, now what? And that, I think, is the most exciting part, is that it's not just, a flash in the pan where people are going to go home and go back to just doing their normal lives, because things aren't normal anymore.
In fact, the current administration has made the comment, "Make America Great Again," and I think that the one thing that they have done for us is that they've awoken the sleeping giant, if to coin a phrase from years ago. But I think that I'm seeing, and I think all of us are seeing, a lot more activism, whether you agree with it or not on both sides. But we are engaging again, and we are realizing that this is our government. This is our country. We are the people, and I've been reading articles and seeing stuff pop up everywhere. What makes a republic fail? Because we are not literally a democracy; we are a republic, and so those are the kind of things that I think is important. But we have a lot of pent-up energy. I think that's what it is. That's what I'm seeing, is that we have a lot of people that are excited and want to engage and want to do something, but what?
Yeah.
Is standing out on the street with a sign more effective than going to my senator or congressman's office? Or, what can I do as just a regular old schmuck here, in the trenches? What can I do?
Yeah. Well, and, I think there isn't any one right answer, because it's not like there is a silver bullet for any of these problems. But I do think that that you're right, that it's a lot of pent-up energy and people are searching for outlets. And I think sometimes the right answer is all of them. There are a lot of things that people can do. I think that the protest actions and visibility actions have been very effective in drawing a lot of attention and putting elected officials on notice that they are being watched, because, you're right, it is a republic. You can't just set cruise control and just let it go. And
right.
I think that's the thing that people are really engaging in. So, for example, over in Utah, Representative Chaffertz just had a town hall and had massive turnout of what he claims are paid protesters, but we all know better.
Right.
And, he's scared.
Well,
he's
my
scared
question
now,
is,
because those are his constituents that are really upset with him.
where's my money?
Well, and
How come nobody's offered to pay me?
I know, right? It's remarkable that apparently there's so much secret paid protesting going on, and yet I'm not seeing any of it.
Yeah.
I just marched for free.
There you go. Me too.
So I think, getting engaged with our representatives that go to D.C. is really important. Y'all here have Dean Heller, who has been a thorn in many people's sides, and I think he's going to start hearing about it a lot more. And that's obviously something that we can target for upcoming elections for 2018. And a lot of people say, well, I don't want to wait that long. We don't have time for that. That's fine. There's a lot of things that you can do on the local level. I think a thing that we're going to have to focus on, especially in the blue states and purple states like Nevada, is focusing on what we can fortify ourselves locally. Go ahead and just set aside the fact, no matter what we do in the next 2 years or 4 years, there's going to be bad stuff coming down the pipe.
Yes.
Federally. We may be able to reverse a lot of it. Yeah, we're going to be able to reverse a lot of it down the line, but in the meantime, there are going to be problems. So we need to fortify a lot of those things. And you're seeing a lot of cities, counties, and states start to step up and do that. California's been really good about it. I think, we're going to be looking at potentially there's some sanctuary state legislation that's pending. So things like that, where there are things that we can do locally.
Can we talk about that for a minute?
Mm-hmm.
And the sanctuary state and one of the things that California, of course, and the feds are saying, okay, well, you're not going to get any more money from us. But I think that they're forgetting that the federal government gets more money from California than California gets from the federal government.
Yep.
So I think that might be a dangerous road for them to go down, to say, okay, we're not going to give any more money, and California says, okay,
all right, fine by us.
We'll keep the money we were giving you.
Yeah.
So and the hardest thing for me, and I'm a Vietnam vet. I come from that era, so all of the protests and stuff like that are like old home week for me. Mm-hmm. It's like, hey, this is wrong. We're going to go out and fix it. But the hard thing for me, and I think for a lot of people, and I see it more and more, and it breaks my heart, and I'm just as guilty as anybody else, is the throwing rocks back and forth. You stupid bitch. How do we stop that? How do we keep from is that part of the plan? Let's get each other fighting each other, and we won't be paying attention over here. Look at this hand, don't look at this hand.
Yeah, and I don't think that that's productive. And I think that there is a lot of anger, and that anger is still valid and important because it's a really strong motivator to get people to do things. But we do have to focus on what's productive and what's going to actually get us something that we want. And I think that you do have to go back. Whether it's about following Sanders' policies, to the T, one of the things that was so compelling about the Sanders campaign for so many voters, what got them out and got them excited, was that it was a really positive vision It was a future to believe in. That was the tagline.
That would benefit
It was-
everyone
yeah.
involved,
And so I
not
think-
just a small few.
And so it was more that it was focusing on actually providing solutions. And so I think that's what we can focus on, is instead of the shouting and name calling and whatever else, all totally valid and coming from a very real, legitimate place, but it's not productive. We need to look at what are the things we need. We need more money for schools. We need bank programs that actually help small businesses and don't punish people for falling behind on payments. And those are things that we can do on state and local legislative levels. And so focusing on policies like that and having that positive vision. And I think that that's a thing that, you can do within the Democratic Party or outside of it, but it's a thing that the Democrats lost sight of in this election, was having a really positive vision. The whole idea was that everything is fine, America's already great, we don't need to fix things. And that's just not the reality for a lot of people.
That's not true, right?
So people are rightly upset, but so we need to stop focusing on having it come from the top down and expecting that from the federal government, at least for the next few years, and really focus on what can we do and what can we provide. And I think in addition to state and local legislatures and other elected positions, things like boards of supervisors are incredibly important. People don't realize how much influence they can have over, county laws and
daily
regulations.
life. Your minute-to-minute
Your
daily life.
your actual
Your
day-to-day.
judges, your board of supervisors, your city council.
Judges are hugely important, and people
Absolutely.
are seeing that now. And I think in previous years, you just tick the box for whoever was on
I
there.
saw his sign on the way here to the voting booth, so yeah, I'll vote for him.
Yeah.
Not knowing anything about that judge, and
Yeah.
that's one of my pet peeves too. And so I have to ask this: Is the answer, or is a partial solution, a third party, or is that just?
I don't know. I can't say for sure whether that's going to be effective. Structurally, it's so difficult.
We have about 50 different
parties
structurally, as it is.
Yeah, structurally, it's very difficult. One model that I think is effective, I worked for Working Families Party in New York.
Right.
And so in New York, you have a cross-balloting system. So they weren't having to run spoiler candidates. They could endorse whoever did well on social and economic justice issues. And they could, and you could still tally up the votes separately so that you knew that that was why they were getting the support, and they had to be held to the fire on those
Right.
issues.
Right.
And so that's something that's a model that can work in some states. I don't know that it will work on a national level. We've yet to see whether that's really going to pan out. They are starting up chapters in more states. I know there's a chapter in Nevada too.
Okay.
And so I think that that's effective. But I think, especially in the immediate future, we still can focus on reforming the Democratic Party. I think that the race for DNC chair is going to be very telling. There's a forum going on right now in Baltimore. It's the last of the candidate listening forums. And I think that that's, still an avenue where we can see whether the Democratic Party wants to actually recapture the working class base that made up the Democratic Party for so many decades.
Right.
I don't think we have to abandon that avenue, because I think that it is an easier way to get to people that already are in positions of power. Obviously, down the line, we want to look at getting people elected, regardless of what their party affiliation is, that stand by the right platforms. It's less about what letters next to your name and more about what you stand for. And I think people are paying more attention to what your actual platform is, even on those lower ticket races.
One of the things that caused the Roman Empire to fail, if you want to go down
goodness.
it was that initially the concept was what's best for the Republic.
Mm-hmm.
And that used to be America's precept, was what's best for the nation, what's best for the country. And I think that we've lost that. It's like, no, this is best for our party, or this is best for this candidate, regardless of what happens or the effect that it has on the nation as a whole.
Yeah.
So do you think that, and this is just a personal opinion, I have nothing to base, well, I do have some things to base it on, but have we lost the concept of the majority rules? Is that concept dead in the United States of America?
I don't know that I would say it's dead, but I think that we've seen that it invariably leaves a lot of people behind. That a lot of people end up not just feeling shut out, but being left behind by that project. I mean, we are a big country with a lot of different interests and needs. What's true in Kentucky is not true in North Dakota, is not true in California, is not true in Florida.
And that's an argument that they use to justify the Electoral College, but that's kind of counterproductive to, okay, so I got 10 million people in California. I don't know if that's how many people in California, but I got a whole bunch of people in California, and I got 1/3 of that in Montana. So if to give it some equality, every person in Montana, his vote is worth 3 votes, where the people in California is only worth 1. Is that what we're supposed to be doing?
I've never been a fan of the Electoral College. I'm not going to lie. I would love to get rid of it.
I mean, I understand. I understand that there is some basis for having something, some check and balance.
Well, and it's not just the Electoral College. You see how the difference in how the Senate and the House of Representatives is made up was essentially an effort to split the baby between two factions, one that believed that every state should have the same representation and one that wanted it to be absolutely based on population size.
Right.
So we effectively ended up with, both in just 2 different houses. And ultimately, if I wanted to just rewrite it and give us a different system, I'd go for a parliamentary system entirely. But, I'm not allowed to rewrite that.
What?
I grew up in an English colony.
No, but my point is just people are afraid of labels, like socialist. For Christ's sakes, we heard that term thrown around so much, and if you stop and look at what we're doing, we're pretty much socialists.
We've always been democratic socialists.
But it's labels are put on things and people to elicit a response, to make it, the old saying that you can make statistics say whatever you want.
Yeah.
And so it's just, anyway.
But an interesting statistic is that more and more people are totally comfortable adopting the label of socialist now, as opposed to, even 10 years ago.
Right.
So I think we are seeing a shift in that conversation, and I think that this election cycle was pivotal in that, in people really examining what those words and labels mean. And we could get into a philosophical debate about the 50 different types of socialism and 50 different types of anarchy and all of that, and we could be here for days if we wanted to.
But you're right there, and I think that what we need to do, and this may be, I just had this epiphany, that, and maybe it's just for me, not for everybody else already knows it, but we need, as individuals, we need to change our focus away from the words and look at the concepts. And what do we want this country to be? Do we want to be a bunch of bigoted racists? And close the borders, shut everybody down, keep everybody out, because I got mine, nobody else gets anything. And that scares me, because look at the enormous growth that this country has had because of immigrants.
And the things that we will absolutely lose in the immediate future as a result of these policies.
Everyone in this country who is not a Native American is an immigrant.
Yep.
So... And anyway, it's scare tactics, and they're trying to scare the crap out of us and make us hate each other, and they're doing a pretty good job of it, because there's some people out there I'd just like to smack upside the head.
But I think you are also seeing some really positive responses, because people are so upset about how outrageous these policies are. I went to law school. I have a lot of friends that are lawyers, and I forgive them for that. And seeing the outpouring of not just, Facebook posts or whatever, but actual activism from lawyers and non-lawyers alike, who went to the airports and put their bodies between,
it
CPD.
Gave me a whole new respect for attorneys.
Oh,
and
the hours that they put in, just...
And it was, the thing that I liked about it, or that I found heartening, was that it was all age groups. It wasn't just, this country traditionally has made changes and great strides because of the young people in our country, not because of old farts like me. We're comfortable.
Some of you come along with the right ideas,
right.
though.
Senator Sanders is one. I mean,
Yeah.
Senator Sanders wasn't somebody for me personally that just came along and I thought, oh, okay, that guy. I mean, I've watched him for years.
Oh, yeah.
And the same with Elizabeth Warren. I don't care what you say. This woman is she says what she means. She's not full of crap, and it just I was happy to see her not run for president or vice president or anything like that, because she can do the most good in the Senate.
And I don't think she's ever wanted the executive
No,
branch.
she
doesn't
didn't
want
want
it.
the Senate.
Well, yeah. I mean, she's done interviews where she's talked about how much she absolutely hates, doing the campaigning and doing all of that. And, I just think she doesn't like it.
And she's made those sacrifices because she is one of those people
She
that
sees a
believes
need.
in what our country is and can be.
Yeah.
And not just for us, but I mean for our kids, for our grandkids.
Yeah.
I just never.
No, and I think, and so I think all of these folks that are trying to, draft Warren or draft Sanders and talk about these, pushing politicians into roles, let's go back to focusing on building from the ground up. And I think that going back to your point of it's not about labels and what you call yourself, it's really about what your platform is and what your ideas are and what your programs are that you support. And I think that that's a really important change that we're seeing, is people really focusing more on those really specific programs that they want to see. Paying more attention to things like how are our community colleges run, and who's in charge of that. Thankfully not Betsy DeVos, but not on the local level anyway. We still have some control. But in addition to, things that we can do on the government side, I think that especially in the immediate future, in the next few years, we're going to need to focus on nonprofits. We're going to need to focus on other organizations that can help provide services, especially if we are looking at potentially losing funding. California, I don't think really has to worry about it. I think it's really more bluster than anything. But I think, we are going to look at potentially losing some funding on that side. So we really need to fortify things like Planned Parenthood for health services.
That's another thing that gets me, is let's take away all of Planned Parenthood's money because they do abortions.
A handful of them,
But the law says that any money that they get cannot be used for that.
Sure.
So they're not doing it anyway. So it's like, okay, look, I want you to stop beating up your little brother. Well, two things. Number one, you don't beat up your little brother. Number two, you don't have a little brother. Well, I mean, I don't know if you do or not, but it's that kind of attitude that gets put out there, and people start buying into that. And it was, I read another article this morning, and the problem that I'm having is reading anything anywhere takes us 4 times as long, because now I fact check everything. I have to fact check everything.
Oh, absolutely.
There was one that popped up on social media a few weeks ago, and it was like, hey, guess what? Cinco de Mayo, falls on a Tuesday this year. So now we can, this is what we've been working for, everybody. Taco Tuesday on Cinco de Mayo. Well, it turns out Cinco de Mayo is actually on a Friday. So even that, you have to
not
fact
even
check,
accurate. You have to check the calendar.
And it's like that. It breaks my heart. So
yeah. Well, and I'm not gonna lie. I forced myself to take a hiatus from all social media because it was just becoming overwhelming, the amount of information that you can delve into. So I think if people are finding that they're really overwhelmed, and I think a lot of people are, because especially a lot of the news is really depressing. Anything that's coming out of DC is just depressing. Find a handful of sources that you trust and check those. I have a few that I use, and so instead of going to Facebook and seeing what everybody's worried about that day, I check in on just a couple of magazines and newspapers, and then there are a few apps that you can use that really help you track legislation and what's going on with your specific representative. So I've been a big fan of Countable, which allows you to actually really track all of those, and you can set what issues you want to focus on. Maybe it's education, maybe it's campaign finance, or click all of the buttons if you want all those notifications, and you can track how those things are doing. So that's been really helpful to me, to just sort of focus on, okay, what's actually coming up and what can I do about it. Making those phone calls, I think, is really important and helpful. We need to keep that pressure on them, but I do think that finding ways to help out locally can help everybody find a way that they can give back directly.
Okay.
One of the most important organizations that I've ever found was Downtown Streets in San Jose in California. And they do amazing work helping transition homeless people off of the streets. And I think that that's, a service that has been left behind by the government for years. That's not even going to depend on funding changes in the next few years. That's already abysmal.
Right.
And so finding organizations like that can help out locally with supplementing services that you would normally expect us to take care of for people. And just get looped in with your community and find ways that you can help out. And that way it can be, positive.
I like that. One of the things that I had read an article recently that, going back to fake news and fact checking and all that, and this surprised me, because when I first read it, I thought, no, this is BS. This can't be true. This absolutely cannot be true. This has to be BS. And it basically said that 40% of Trump supporters believed that the Bowling Green massacre was real.
Yeah, I saw that.
And I'm going, no. Come on, this has to be another one of those,
I haven't looked at the methodology of it. I believe that poll was by PPP, which usually they do good work. So that's what scares me.
Yeah.
I can see how it could depend on the phrasing of the question, and I'll admit I haven't looked at the methodology yet. If the question that you posed on the survey was, do you believe that an event like the Bowling Green massacre justifies the ban? Most people are going to say yes, whether or not they're acknowledging that they think that the massacre really happened.
Right.
If the question is asked just point blank, do you think there was a massacre in Bowling Green? That's a very unsettling statistic.
Right.
That 40% think that that's true.
And that's what's scary. And the average person doesn't take the time to do that, because we've trusted our news sources up until now. For the most part. I mean, up until the last few years. But I mean, you had people like Walter Cronkite and that he was at one point in time the most trusted man in America.
Yeah.
And newscasters, if a politician was lying or if something was going on, they called them on it. And we don't see that happening anymore. Even
I think that's going to change, though.
I hope so.
I've been seeing a lot of interesting, not articles, I guess, but just interesting dialogue coming from Dan Rather, who has been speaking out.
He just started a new news service.
Yes.
Guts and
I don't know what he ended up naming it, but
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, and so I think we are going to end up getting some interesting sources from journalists that are really pushing back.
Yeah.
So we'll see. The media has to change what it's doing. They've been going down the entertainment route for so long that they haven't really focused on journalism in a long time. And so I think that that's something that we are going to see change. And there are other smaller outlets that you can utilize that may be more likely to have a specific agenda, but they usually at least aren't hiding it, so you know where they're coming from.
Right.
And so that can be another good source. But I think you're right. It just takes longer. You just have to spend more time double checking things, because you don't know, what's true and what's spin, and even depending on the outlet you're looking at, if it's if it's an op-ed piece, it could just be anybody.
Well, and that's the other thing, is that there are opinions and there are facts, and they're not necessarily the same thing. And I respect that you can have any opinion that you want, and I will, I support that.
Yeah.
But it doesn't change the facts.
Yeah.
You can't say that just because I believe this is what it is. And I think that that's where we've gotten to a point where my opinion is the truth.
Yeah, and well,
forget it,
I don't remember who said it, but the quote is, you're entitled to your own opinion, but you're not entitled to your own facts.
Right.
And I think that that's a place where people are now, and going back to your 40% that believe this, we're also seeing a really interesting dialogue around the psychology of belief and the psychology of how do people come to believe things, and why do they hold on to beliefs even in the face of absolute evidence to the contrary. And so I think that is a place where we're seeing people butting heads and not making any progress in a conversation. Because, if you absolutely believe that, that the ban isn't a Muslim ban and that it's totally legitimate, you and I are just not going to agree on that. And there's nothing I can say that's going to bring you around on it.
Exactly.
But I think what I have at least found, and it's totally anecdotal, I haven't done any kind of sociological study on this, what I have found to be helpful, at least in those one-on-one conversations with people who disagree with me, is focusing on, instead of arguing about facts or arguing about what led us to here, is focusing on positive visions of something going forward. if I'm talking to somebody who's roughly my age, there's a good chance that they have some debt hanging over from
Right.
school. So talking about the specifics of that program and how they could be benefited from changes in how we end up burying people in debt and set them on a path where they can't get a house, they can't get a car, they're not looking at really building any wealth, they're not going to build towards retirement. They're really, it's an anchor that holds you down for basically your whole life.
And I'm glad that you brought that up, because that is one thing that I wanted to address, is that by making education more difficult to obtain, you have a dumbing down of America. I don't want somebody, as a doctor, I don't want to go to a doctor, and this affects me, not because I got kids in school, but when I go to a doctor, I want to know that this is the best educated doctor. And if you go to the doctor today, look around and pay attention, you will see most of the doctors out there are from somewhere else.
Yeah, that's true.
Right? And it's because, holy crap, you can't afford an education.
Well, or if you do, you end up with so much debt that when you get out, you look at the difference between, I could perform, 8 hours of surgery on somebody who comes into the ER and I'm not going to basically get paid anything for it. Or I could do 4 rhinoplasties in a day and be able to, pay to keep my kids in college.
Sure.
You're going to do the math on that, and you're going
Right.
to do plastic surgery instead of going and working in an ER.
Absolutely.
And so I think that that's something that...
Because you have to pay off that student loan.
Yeah.
Now, if you didn't have to pay off that student loan, and you could go to college, or if you could get an education in a field that you love doing and wanted to do and could make this country better, isn't that something to strive for?
Absolutely. And I think that we can go at,
And it's not free education. That
the
term
idea
got
of getting
thrown
free
around.
stuff. Yeah.
Right. And it's not, it's like, look, you want to talk about free stuff? Let's talk about big business.
Oh,
and
yeah.
all of the
Corporate
tax breaks
giveaways.
and corporate
Yeah.
giveaways. And those are the real welfare recipients. Why not take some of that money and invest it in education and teaching our children to be better educated and think for themselves?
Yeah.
And I had a professor in philosophy years and years and years ago, and this was, I think Plato was his name or something. No. But
Back before fire.
his name was Dr. Goodman, and he would never ever answer a question in class. If any of the students asked a question, we would spend that whole class time, getting that student to answer the question himself. Because, and I think that's the Socratic method.
Yeah.
He would keep asking that person, that individual questions until that student went, oh,
Eureka.
I get it.
Yeah.
He had to think for himself. He didn't just say, oh yeah, the answer is 7 or 42.
Well, the answer is 42. But
Yeah.
life, the universe,
Don't
and
panic.
everything. Don't panic.
Don't
And
panic. Yeah, we should.
That's an important
we should
mantra.
Start
That's an
plastering
important-
that, and everybody carrying a towel and don't panic.
Don't
Plaster it
panic.
all over everything.
So long as you know where your towel is,
Yep,
you're
you
good
got
to go.
it made. So get your towels together, people.
Yeah.
But anyway, it was, and that's what we need to do in this country, and not just, if you want an education and you want to earn a living, then you got to pay for it, and you've got to put yourself in debt so that you can never, ever, ever get out from under that yoke.
And I think that it
And
is
you
a
will be
philosophical.
a slave forever.
And it's a philosophical difference in, the argument supposedly is that you give these big tax breaks to corporations because they're job creators. Give the
No,
tax
they're
breaks
not.
to the workers. Why
Right.
on earth, why are we doing this bizarre trickle down?
Right.
It makes no sense.
It does not trickle down.
Yeah, and I think that there are more people seeing that. I think that one of the big tragedies in this country is that we've seen a decline in unions and union membership.
Right.
And that's the thing that's going to be at risk. We're looking at federal right-to-work legislation, and it's going to get real dicey out there. But I think that there are more people that are looking at it, and we're going to see a difference in how business responds to questions of social responsibility.
Right.
I think we are seeing now, already with things like, Starbucks promising to hire refugees and Lyft donating to the ACLU. And, you can be
But see,
cynical,
there
and you
you
can be
go.
cynical about whether it's just to attract attention. But whether it's sincere or not, does it really matter?
It
If
works.
they're donating $3 million to the ACLU, they're donating $3 million to the ACLU.
And the first thing that happens is somebody jumps all over that. Well, why not veterans?
Well, Starbucks is
They already-
they're in the process of hiring. They're
Right.
I think they're at 8,000 and something out
Right.
of their 10,000 goal.
And I see this all the time, it's like, okay, you want to bring in the refugees, but why not take care of our veterans instead?
Why not do both? Let's
That's
do
my-
all of these
why
things.
we can do both.
Yeah.
We've done both.
We've
and
got-
we can do it again.
yeah, we can absolutely
if
do
we
it.
don't have a bunch of greedy bastards out there.
Yeah,
So-
and I think that, so we're going to see that change coming from a lot of businesses that are going to have to question, am I going to get shut down and boycotted if I continue to act like Uber? And we've seen them and
Right.
say, oh, well, damn, everybody deleted the app and nobody's riding with us anymore. We're going to have to
Oops.
maybe be a little nicer.
Yeah.
Granted, in general, I disapprove of both Lyft and Uber because they aren't union.
But what about
that's
what about
a
this?
smaller issue.
And I think that this is a question that we all ask ourselves from time to time for whatever. It's like, okay, well, they're doing this, this, and this, which is good for everybody and good for the country. But what about their motivation? Do you think? Does it matter?
I don't think it does. Well, and to go back to your philosophy class, we can have a whole discussion of act utilitarianism and rule utilitarianism. Right. Is it right because you're just following the rules, or is it right because of the effect that it has? And I think that ultimately results are what matters. And
I
so,
do too.
I don't really care what somebody's motivation is. We can spend an hour or two just talking about whether or not altruism really exists. And so, I don't care. It's irrelevant to me.
Right.
If they're doing the right thing and it's having a
What
good
is the
impact,
outcome?
yes.
What is the final product?
Yeah.
What are we getting in return? And I think that that's key.
And so that's why I liked really focusing on what are things that we can fix and what's a positive program that we can actually build on. And I think that, we can focus on how to bring it down from the government. But again, I keep going back to there are a lot of ways that we can do this through private groups and charities and nonprofits. You can get educational grants from like the Packard Foundation to go do stuff. And I think that if we can keep focusing on driving that kind of positive action, both from the government side and from private investment, we can start seeing those programs in action and then build on them.
I like that. We're kind of running out of time, which
Unfortunately.
happens a lot. Yeah, I mean, we could take a whole week. If you have a week, you come back and you've got a whole week. Let's sit down and we'll go through this for a whole week and
Yeah.
solve all the world problems.
Oh, goodness, yeah. Maybe a year from now we'll do the 2-year anniversary of
go.
the caucus.
Okay, so we can have an anniversary every year. Anyway, this was for me absolutely phenomenal because it's given me a chance to get some of my opinions and feelings out there, and I thank you for coming in, and I thank you for all the work that you did on the campaign, and I hope that you don't stop there. I hope that you continue to do the things that you know are right, and I know you will.
The fight continues.
That's it. So, and the one other thing that I might say for all my sci-fi fans out there, resistance is not futile.
And a woman's place is in the resistance.
There you go. Okay, so that's it. We're done. We're not going to do any more today, so I just want to say, if you're going to do it with styles.
Thank you.